Natural used to mean biology, and now it refers to branding. It's not a physiological state anymore. Instead, it's a vibe, a label, and for most, a costume you put on so that people trust you faster. Because social media didn't just change fitness, it has now turned it into cosplay. Everyone's playing a character. You have your monk discipline guy, the built different guy, the chicken, rice, broccoli with a side of willpower guy, and natural became the cleanest costume in the wardrobe, simply because it sells credibility without the receipts involved. This is self-made billionaire energy when the inheritance did the heavy lifting. And the science makes it even funnier, because there is no global definition of natural. None. Zero. Not one universal standard. You go into different federations, and you've got yourself a new set of rules with different tests and different detection windows. Some substances clear in weeks, some in months, while some manage to do so in days. This concludes that tested doesn't mean clean. It could mean that you just weren't caught early enough. And passing one test doesn't equal lifetime natural. Also, not failing a test doesn't equal biological innocence. And I've never popped is not the same sentence as I've never used. So nowadays, natural isn't even a biological state anymore, it's a marketing costume. It is just a filter setting, not a hormone profile, but a branding strategy. Because in 2026, fitness culture, natural doesn't describe physiology anymore. It describes a character archetype, and everybody's auditioning for their share. But you know the biggest snitch in fitness. It's not your diet, your training split, or your supplements, so you can drop that off of your list. All that matters is time, because the internet will have you believing that people are somehow going from NPC to final boss in one season like this is a Netflix montage. 12 months in the gym, and suddenly you're built like a Marvel extra? Relax. This isn't an anime training arc, it's simple human biology. Your muscles don't download like a software update. There's no install hypertrophy 2.0 button. And the truth is that real muscle takes time. Not just size, but also the maturity, density, tissue adaptation, tendon strength, neural efficiency, and the list goes on. All of it moves slow, like painfully slow. And you're left thinking, why am I even doing this? Beginners get newbie gains, and that's real. Your nervous system adapts fast, your coordination suddenly improves, and you learn how to recruit muscle better. So strength jumps early, but the actual tissue growth, that's a different process. That's protein synthesis limits, and the higher you go, the slower it gets. That's diminishing returns. Progress doesn't accelerate, and on top of that, it also decelerates. So when you see 12 to 18 month transformations that look like someone speedran a decade of training, that's not motivation, that's a time paradox. Because natural testosterone ranges don't support superhero timelines, and protein synthesis doesn't work on a 2x button. Your body doesn't go, oh, you're serious? Cool, here's 15 pounds of lean tissue. That's not how physiology works. It's not discipline, genetics, or the mindset. That's timeline compression, and thus, time is the one thing enhancement replaces. Because there's a pattern nobody likes to admit exists, but everybody recognizes it the second they see it. The same silhouette, the same structure, the same visual blueprint, just different faces and different usernames. Capped delts that look 3D printed, round shoulders with that plastic wrap shine, traps that grow like they're on a separate subscription plan, and that dry peeled look year-round like body fat is just a seasonal rumor. Somehow it's always the same muscle groups taking the spotlight. Twist. And that's the part people miss. This isn't symmetry, it's selectivity. Biologically, different muscles respond differently to hormones. Different tissues have different androgen receptor densities. Different muscle groups have different hormonal sensitivity. And yes, different fibers adapt at different rates to androgen exposure. That's not gym lore, it's just actual physiology. So certain areas blow up first, certain muscles hold fullness year-round, and certain groups develop that dense, 3D look that doesn't fade even in off-season phases. It's why the visual pattern keeps repeating across physiques that claim completely different routines, diets, and training philosophies. It's not random, a coincidence, or just good genetics. It's a consistent biological response. That's why some bodies start looking less like human variants and more like presets, Marvel action figures, moving like GTA character customization sliders, where the shoulders and traps always seem to get the DLC first while calves are still running the demo version. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Inhumane recovery. And one of the funniest parts of the fake natural culture isn't even the physiques, it's their outrageous recovery stories. Twice-a-day training sessions 6 to 7 days a week, year-round, with no rest phases, no injuries or burnout. No, I need a week off, And no, I overdid it. Just infinite grind mode like fatigue is a myth. Because apparently these guys don't get sore, they just respawn. This man recovers like Wolverine. Someone else has Captain America's metabolism. Bro's got anime region stats. But here's the biology reality check. The human body simply doesn't work like that. Your nervous system accumulates fatigue. Cortisol rises with chronic stress. Hormonal recovery happens in windows and not instantly. Sleep quality directly affects testosterone production, growth hormone release, and tissue repair. Inflammation markers increase with training volume, not decrease. Your connective tissue adapts slower than muscle, not faster. Natural systems have limits, they have recovery limits and breakdown points. You don't just discipline cortisol or hustle through hormonal depletion. So when someone's training twice a day, staying shredded, never burning out, and never breaking down, you're not watching elite recovery, you're watching non-human recovery. Because actual recovery isn't a Fortnite shield potion. You don't just take damage and instantly refill the bar. Real training has cycles. Real bodies have crashes, and real progress has recovery phases. If there's no recovery story, fatigue, no breakdown, and no rebuild, you're just watching a fantasy build. And so this is exactly why the next giveaway is impossible to miss. Growth graph that doesn't make sense. One of the cleanest giveaways in fitness isn't how big someone gets, it's how their strength progresses, because real training doesn't move in straight lines. It never has and never will. Progress curves with plateaus, dips, and regresses. That's what adaptation looks like in real biology. But online, everyone's on a straight line to the moon. Just infinite linear progression like their body installed a mod menu. And science makes that fantasy obvious. Neural adaptation has its own limits. With your motor unit recruitment maxing out, nervous system learning efficiency early, the curve flattens. Hormonal systems have output limits. Tendons, ligaments, and joint structures lag behind strength gains, not ahead of them. That's why injuries happen and deloads exist. But in the fake natural fantasy land, none of that shows up. There are no stalls, setbacks, or rebuilding phases. Just clean highlight reels and upward graphs forever. It's not training, that's scripting. Because if your graph never bends, never breaks, and never humbles, you're not living in reality anymore. You're a bystander to a storyline. And that's exactly where the math starts falling apart. Diet. Now we come to a point where all of the fitness math officially breaks reality, because you have low calories plus muscle gain. A perfectly shredded look, but the size increases. No fat gain phases, but with mass building. Because somehow everyone online is eating clean, in a deficit, staying lean, and still putting on visible size like physiques took the day off. This is just denial. I mean, you can't manifest mass. And calories are not vibes. Your tissue growth requires surplus. And muscles aren't created out of discipline, it's built out of resources. You need fuel, calories, and recovery substrate. There's no biological system where consistent muscle gain happens without consistent energy availability. Hormones don't ignore math either. Leptin and ghrelin regulate hunger and energy signaling. The thyroid hormones regulate metabolic rate. Chronic low intake triggers metabolic adaptation. The body slows systems down, output drops, the recovery quality drops, and growth becomes inefficient. That's why real building phases come with fat gain. It's the reason why off-seasons cutting and bulking cycles exist. But online, everyone's on a forever recomp arc. Always shredded, growing, lean, and somehow still improving. Real bodies trade things off. Progress has its own phases, and growth always comes with a side of compromises. If the calories never go up, the mass doesn't either. And if the math isn't mathing, it's not biology. The genetics. And another thing to take into perspective is how every time something doesn't add up, the same shield comes out, genetics. You can call it elite genetics, crazy genetics, god tier genetics, or the built different genetics. It's all a universal excuse. It's like the magic word that ends every conversation without answering anything. And genetics are very much real, let's be clear about that. Your bone structure, the limb length, muscle insertions, fiber type distribution, and even your hormone sensitivity matters. And some people are absolutely advantaged. But genetics doesn't cancel biology. Genetic advantage doesn't bypass hormone systems or override recovery limits. Genetics is a boost and not a cheat code. Because after all, premium hardware still runs the same OS, even elite genetics hit ceilings, and that's the important part that never gets said. Because Genetics gets used like a blank check. Because genetics gets used like a blank check. A way to explain away timelines, physiques, recovery, strength curves, and diet math that don't make sense without actually explaining anything. So now genetics isn't a factor, it's a shield. And the cleanest thing is simple genetics might extend or shorten your limits, but it does not change the laws of physics. If the story violates biology, calling it genetics doesn't fix it. The real intent. Now let's be real. The fake, natural bodies aren't just for show. They're a business model. From every suspicious transformation, every shredded reel to every "I did it naturally in 12 months" post, everything has a profit motive behind it. It could be coaching sales, supplement brands, online programs, brand deals, or even relatability selling. It's all connected, and it's all a funnel built on trust that doesn't actually exist. This is influencer capitalism at its finest. It's hope marketing. People buy belief before results. And natural is the perfect hook, because it tells viewers that if I do exactly what they do, I can also look like this, while conveniently ignoring timelines, biology, and recovery reality. The mechanics are simple. Post insane progress pictures. Make it look effortless, call it natural. Package it with your coaching program, and sell the dream. Rinse and repeat. Every 12-week transformation that looks like a decade of work is carefully curated. A supplement ad featuring a shredded natural body is designed to bypass skepticism, brand deals, and every affiliate link. Hinges on one key factor, making people believe the impossible is easy. And that's why the ecosystem thrives. Because no one just buys knowledge or consistency. They buy the illusion, the shortcut, and the hope. And as long as the lie keeps selling, the bodies in highlight reels don't need to make sense. It's profitable and systemic. Impact on audience, but the most important part that doesn't make the reels is the mental fallout. The ripped physiques you scroll past aren't just impossible, they're also toxic for anyone trying to follow along. New lifters grind themselves into the ground, trying to chase numbers, aesthetics, and timelines that simply don't exist. They push past limits, skip rest days, starve themselves, and watch fatigue pile up, only to lag or regress anyway. They aren't failing, they're just being lied to. Body dysmorphia sneaks in quietly, hiding behind flex selfies and filter-perfect transformations. Imposter syndrome shows up at every gym, whispering, "Why can't I look like this? Am I broken?" Every transformation post is a reminder of how behind you are, even when you're actually making real progress. This isn't motivation anymore, it's a distortion. And the cost isn't measured in pounds or reps. It's measured in mental health, self-worth, and trust in your own biology. The takeaway is brutal, but simple. Chasing impossible narratives leaves lifters burnt, insecure, and desperate. Real growth doesn't warp reality, it works with biology and not against it. And once you understand that, the lies stop having power. And the thing is that nobody wants to admit that being enhanced isn't the villain. Also, using substances, supplements, or shortcuts isn't the problem. The real crime is pretending you aren't. There's zero shame in enhancement if it's transparent. If you're open, honest, and upfront, you're playing by the rules of biology and honesty. That's the culture we should normalize, be it transparency in progress, in methods, or in results. Respect for real naturals doesn't mean shaming others. Real naturals push human limits using only biology, discipline, and consistency. They deserve acknowledgement for their patience and effort. But respect for open enhanced athletes is also equally critical. They acknowledge reality and educate responsibly. The key difference is honesty, so if the story violates biology, hiding it doesn't make it inspiring, it makes it dangerous. And the easiest way to stop distortion culture is simply to normalize honesty. The problem isn't what someone uses, it's what they say they didn't. So if your self-worth depends on influencer bodies, you already lost. Real progress is slow, boring, and that's why it's real. It doesn't come with flashy edits, cinematic pumps, or Instagram filters. It comes with consistency, patience, and respect for your own limits. Biology is better than branding. Consistency is better than aesthetics. And most importantly, your health should be your focus instead of a fantasy. That's the hierarchy that actually matters. You don't need to look superhuman to be strong. And once you internalize that, the lies stop having power. But what do you think? How much of what you chase online is reality? And how much is just fantasy packaged as motivation? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this opened your eyes, you're going to want to check out our video where we're breaking down every steroid banned in the Olympics, why they're banned, and how athletes try to game the system. Click over and see the science and the chaos behind the myth.